Welcome to another episode of AutoMundial, the weekly car news and review show, where this week we're checking out one of the most talked about cars of 2020, the striking new BMW 4 Series.
We've also got SUVs from Toyota and Aston Martin, as well as the wildest hot hatch at the moment, the Mercedes-AMG A45.
That's all coming up. First though,
the British Prime Minister Boris Johnson has announced a ban on all petrol and diesel car sales from 2030, brought forwards 10 years from the original 2040 date. All new internal combustion cars, as well as hybrids that cannot cover significant distance in zero emissions mode, will be banned from showrooms, with plug-in hybrids due to be outlawed in 2035. From then on, all new cars must be either electric or hydrogen powered. Part of the Prime Minister's so-called 10-point plan, the new ban will mean buyers who want the convenience of a petrol car will need to buy second-hand. As it stands, there are currently just under 32 million cars in Britain, 513,000 of which are hybrids, with fewer than 200,000 EVs. To level these numbers out, the government will need to invest heavily in infrastructure for the charging network, although the national grid says it will have enough capacity for the EV transition.
It's well known that car manufacturers produce different models for specific countries, allowing them to make the most out of local laws and restrictions. Differing legislation, such as emission and safety laws, play a part, as well as demographical and geographical reasons. Europe's city streets are not suited to a Ford F-150, for example, in the same way that a key car would be more than a little scary on an American interstate. And today, it's the Toyota Sequoia that has us wishing we could get our hands on some North American market cars in Europe. Launched in 2000, the Sequoia was the first vehicle from a Japanese marque in the full-sized SUV class in the States. And 2 decades later, this is the latest version. Although, despite its updates for 2021, it doesn't seem to have moved on that much since the previous car. It has the same engine, which is available in 2- or 4-wheel drive, and inside and out, the car looks much the same. However, the 4.7-litre has been dropped, so all models are now fitted with a 5.7-litre V8. This has plenty of punch, with 381 horsepower, over 30 more than the Chevrolet Tahoe and 6 more than the entry-level Ford Expedition. And with a starting price similar to both its American rivals, starting a tad under $50,000, it seems good value on paper. So, if the engine and exterior are the same, what's new? Well, Toyota has been making the Sequoia a bit more off-road ready and adventurous, especially with the TRD Pro trim level. This model features new Fox shocks, skid plates and blacked-out emblems, giving it more street cred as well. However, it is $64,000, making it very much a car for enthusiasts. Having said that, the baseline SR5 model is still very capable, with Apple and Android support, adaptive cruise control and lane departure warning as standard. Optional extras include heated front seats and integrated navigation. Features and gizmos aside, the cabin of the Sequoia does show its age. Besides the 7-inch touchscreen infotainment display, complete with smartphone compatibility, the Sequoia's interior is outdated and a little dull. There are lots of hard plastics and cheap fabrics that you'd expect to find on a 90s SUV, not something from 2020. Thankfully, the cargo area is one of the largest in its class, and a flexible seating arrangement allows for up to 8 passengers. Furthermore, because of its improved off-road capabilities, the Sequoia rides bumps very well, and its towing ability is also a class front runner. Where the Sequoia majorly falls down is with its fuel economy. The combined figure is quoted at 15 miles per gallon, which is poor even for the large SUV class. For a daily driver, this will put off a lot of buyers. For these reasons, we're still waiting for the upgrade that the Sequoia needs to leap to the top of the large SUV table. However, Toyota has recognised this, and in 2022, the brand has promised that the Sequoia will be overhauled to the F1 platform, which allows for hybrid variants and its latest infotainment systems.
So, if the Sequoia is the kid with a retro games console, which of the new gen, the Ford Expedition and Chevrolet Tahoe, is the best pick? Well, both have been recently redesigned and upgraded, so there is plenty to shout about. On the power front, the Tahoe packs a bigger punch thanks to a pair of available V8s opposed to the V6 in the Ford. The smaller one feels a little weak, but opt for the full-fat 6.2 and you'll soon see the Ford disappear to nothing in the rearview mirror. It is also a bit cheaper, and inside the space and number of gadgets available is seriously impressive. The options list seems to go on like the receipt for a weekly shop, with wonderful things like Bose audio and big screens for the rear seats. The Expedition has the Tahoe one-upped on towing though, something that's very important in the States. It can tow well over 4 tons, more than any of its rivals, and yet Ford still claims a respectable 24 combined mpg. Inside, the big Ford has leather everywhere, but it's let down by acres of nasty, cheap-feeling plastics. It looks good though, with a big square dashboard matching the exterior styling. But the Chevy is the winner on this occasion. It has tons of storage and really is the most practical car in its class.
At first glance, this new DBX from Aston Martin may seem like just another example of a premium sports car brand cashing in on the SUV trend. Porsche has done it, so has Lamborghini, and even Lotus is planning a 4x4 to complement its new Evija hypercar. But for Aston, the DBX is more than just a cash cow, as it could well be essential for the brand's survival. With profits and share prices falling last year, a popular SUV could be just what the historic British brand needs to secure its future. However, this is new territory for Aston, so how have they got on? Well, from the outside at least, the DBX is refreshingly good looking for a car in this class. It gets a proper Aston grille, more traditional than the recent ones we've seen on the latest Vantage and DBS Superleggera. In fact, despite its 4 doors, high ride height and general SUV-ness, it does actually look like an Aston Martin. At the back, you find a slightly incongruous Vantage-style ducktail spoiler that we reckon will take some time to get used to, but there are other subtler Vantage-inspired details. The exhausts, for example, are surrounded by perforated mesh, and the full-width taillight follows the contours of the spoiler. It uses the same AMG-derived engine as the Vantage too, but this time the 4-litre V8 has been tuned up to 542 brake horsepower. 0 to 62 miles per hour is dealt with in just 4.5 seconds, onto a top speed of 181. To keep everything in check, the DBX uses an active centre differential and an E-diff at the rear. This allows for almost all of the power to be sent to the rear wheels should the conditions allow it. That should be the S in SUV taken care of then, while elsewhere it's as roomy and plush as any of its rivals. There's enough room for tall adults to travel comfortably, while the full-length panoramic roof gives the whole interior a nice airy feel. In fact, the cabin is possibly the best in Aston's current lineup. It still uses the same peculiar design language, but it suits the DBX more than it does a DB11. It looks more modern too, with updated infotainment and gorgeous materials throughout. And while it goes without saying, this is by far the most practical car Aston has ever built, there's an optional pet pack for muddy dogs, and there's a host of optional roof boxes and bike racks to choose from.
But Aston isn't the only British brand with a new fast 4x4. This is the Jaguar F-Pace SVR. complete with a 5-litre supercharged V8, good for 0 to 62 in 4.3 seconds, 0.2 of a second quicker than the DBX. Despite this though, the Jag is half the price of the Aston and it's far from pokey inside. The interior is modern and luxurious with all the bells and whistles you'd expect on a Jaguar. The exterior has also had some upgrades over the standard F-Pace. It gets a much sportier look than the regular car, with a louvered bonnet, subtle rear spoiler and a lower, wider body kit. So what justifies the Aston's £160,000 asking price? Well, the cabin is that bit posher than the Jags, and the whole car feels just that little bit more polished. We suspect, though, that the biggest reason is the badge on the front. Buyers will always pay more for an Aston Martin, but it does make the F-Pace seem like great value for money.
With Aston's recent struggles, the DBX really needs to work. And to some extent, the brand has put all of its eggs in the SUV basket, having built a brand new factory in South Wales for its production. But we do think it'll be successful as a gateway into Aston Martin ownership. And at the very least, it's a lot better looking than a Bentley Bentayga or Rolls-Royce Cullinan.
Join us again after the break as we look at the all-new BMW 4 Series.
Coming up, the divisive new BMW 4 Series. But first...
It's no secret that we're big fans of hot hatches here at AutoMundial, and this could well be the hottest of them all, the all-new Mercedes-AMG A45. There are two versions available, the regular 382 brake horsepower A45 and the monstrous 415 brake horsepower A45S. Needless to say, that's the one we'll be concentrating on here. Both versions make use of the same engine, a highly strung turbocharged 2-litre, sending power to all four wheels via an 8-speed dual-clutch automatic. 0 to 62 miles per hour is taken care of in a barely believable 3.9 seconds. That's quicker than an AMG GT. Naturally, the A45 gets some proper stopping power too, with some 4-pot front brakes or some hefty 6-pots on the S version. Adaptive dampers come as standard, as does the all-important adaptive exhaust, which sounds suitably naughty. Being an AMG product, the A45 was always going to be powerful, but the boffins at Affalterbach have been busy working on the chassis too. While the tamer A35 served as a base, the full-fat 45 gets some frequency-selective shock absorbers and something very exciting that we first saw on the Ford Focus RS, a drift mode. Oh yes, this is a very sideways hot hatch. At the press of a button, the grippy all-wheel drive A45 is transformed into a leery, tail-happy drifter. The very clever rear differential is fitted with 2 multi-disc clutches that can send different amounts of power to each wheel. There are 6 other driving modes, including 1 configurable individual mode, as well as 4 different settings for the traction control. To differentiate the A45 from the lesser A35, some more aggressive aero and styling upgrades are fitted. There's a deeper front splitter, some very sporty canards, and that enormous rear wing. The interior is largely the same as in the A35, meaning you get the wonderful MBUX dual-screen infotainment system, some bucket seats, a flat-bottom steering wheel, and countless AMG badges around the cabin. The most noticeable difference is the new optional yellow trim, taking the place of the red trim in the regular car. Everything else inside is standard A-Class, meaning decent space throughout, a decent boot, and some nice haptic controls.
The new A45 then has jumped straight to the top of its class, but its key rival, the Audi RS3, has its own charms. It may be due for replacement, but climb aboard the RS3 and you get the sense that the whole car was really built to last. The materials are beautiful too, with swathes of Alcantara and carbon fibre throughout. And then there's the RS3's party piece, its engine. No puny four-cylinder here, oh no. The Audi gets a glorious turbocharged 2.5-litre five-cylinder motor, pumping out a respectable 395 brake horsepower. Like the Mercedes, the Audi is all-wheel drive, allowing for a 0-62 time of 4.1 seconds. Marginally slower than the AMG, but top speed is higher at 174 miles per hour. Useful if your commute takes you via a German autobahn. The styling is much more subtle, in keeping with Audi's classy, more refined character. Open the taps though and the RS3 howls through its tailpipes. It really is one of the greatest sounding engines in production right now. So is the Audi good enough to tempt buyers away from the riotous new Mercedes? Well, it's an older car that's due to be replaced very soon, but one that's proven to be very popular. However, get out on a twisty road and the Audi just doesn't quite feel sharp enough to satisfy the most discerning of drivers.
The new Mercedes-AMG A45 then is the current hot hatch king, and one that we suspect will be holding on to its crown for some time.
Every now and then, a car comes out with styling that splits opinions. The current Land Rover Discovery, for example, with its off-centre number plate, or the Mini Paceman, which looked like it had been squashed. In 2020, though, surely the most divisive car must be this, the all-new BMW 4 Series. And we'll kick things off, rather predictably, at the front, where we're greeted by the most distinctive grilles of the decade. Love them or hate them, this giant pair of nostrils is enormous. Presumably designed to hoover up small woodland animals as it drives past. We can't take our eyes off them. Inside the cabin, its 3 Series DNA becomes clear. It shares the same elegant dashboard and features all the tech available in the 4-door car. The 2 screens, one on the dash and one in front of the driver, are bright and crisp, while the chunky 3-spoke steering wheel is classic BMW. There is a range of new engine to choose from, with all diesels coming equipped with a 48-volt mild hybrid setup, along with the range-topping M440i. The hybrid systems recoup energy under braking. Power is then deployed to assist the engine, reducing emissions and improving fuel economy. The entry-level car is the petrol-powered 420i, a 2-litre petrol motor putting out 181 brake horsepower, getting from 0 to 62 miles per hour in 7.5 seconds. Next up is the 430, which uses the same engine but boosts power to 254 bhp. The petrol range is topped off by the M440i xDrive, a 3-litre straight 6 with 369 bhp and all-wheel drive. Impressively, it can hit 62 from rest in just 4.5 seconds, on its way to an electronically limited top speed of 155. Interestingly, the top-spec diesel car isn't far off the performance figures of its petrol alternative. When it arrives next year, the M440D will hit 62 miles per hour in 4.7 seconds and will deliver over 42 miles per gallon.
So then it seems that the new 4 Series is, styling aside, everything we expected it to be. But how does it stack up against its main competitor, the beautiful Mercedes C-Class Coupe? It may have been around for a while now, but the 2-door C-Class seems, if anything, to be getting better with age. With more cars becoming angular and edgy, the elegant C-Class is just as appealing as when it first launched 5 years ago. The interior still looks good too, and its engine range is just as diverse as the BMW's. But with the M440i, the fastest 4 Series available until the imminent arrival of the new M4, its nearest rival is the C43. The entry-level AMG C-Class, the 43 does without the traditional AMG V8 rumble, instead making use of a turbocharged 3-litre V6. Power is up at 385 brake horsepower, with 0 to 62 taken care of in 4.7 seconds. The performance is impressive, but it isn't a characterful engine. The noise isn't too exciting either, leaving the full-fat C63 as the car to go for if you really want to show off your coupe.
The Mercedes then is still a great choice. All versions drive well and they certainly look a lot better than the 4 Series. Time will tell if the BMW's front end grows on us, but with a loyal fan base and 3 Series underpinnings, we're sure the new 4 will be a common sight before long.
Join us again next week on AutoMundial as we take a look at the new Mocha SRI. Is it the most desirable Vauxhall on the market?